Hello and welcome to the Modern Music Mixing course. Today we're going to be going over what we did on the lead guitar on the track I'm There For You. Let's get into the session. Okay, so I'm going to start by showing you what we had to work with to start with. So we basically just had a DI. Here's what it sounded like. Let's start by just listening to only the amp, and then we'll bring in other elements, and we'll listen in solo just so that we can really analyse what it sounds like. So we started off with that nice sort of tubey distortion sound there. And what we did here is we took away a little bit of 100, a little bit of 200, a little bit of 400. So basically all of the low mids and lows of the guitar. And then also took away a little bit of 1.6k. And what we're essentially doing here is we're shaping the tone of the DI on the way into the amplifier. So it's just like having an EQ pedal, essentially. Now what this is going to do is it's going to make it so that as the signal of the guitar presses into the preamp of the amplifier, it's going to distort certain frequencies before others. And because we've taken away some of the lows and low mids, it's going to sound a little less distorted. And we've also taken away a little bit of that 1.6k, which maybe has a little bit of a harsh sound to it if you have too much of that being distorted. So I'm going to take this out and take a listen to the effect it has when we bring it in. So it basically has the effect of cleaning up the amp sound a little bit. Without it, it kind of sounds a little bit fizzy on the top, but we're just basically taking away a little bit of those sort of mid frequencies and the low frequencies, and it's not pushing into the amplifier as hard, so we're not getting that very aggressive harmonic generation where those fizzy frequencies are. Okay, so next let's go over what we did with this first EQ here. We're basically doing some corrective moves. This first little node here, we're just rolling off very gently some of the low end rumble. This little section here, let's take a listen to what we're doing there. So it's some of that sort of boxiness / nasally honkiness you sometimes get with a distorted guitar. So we're just rolling a little bit of that away, or cutting a little bit of that away. And this one, I'm assuming we are just taking out some very harsh frequencies there. Yeah, so with that, just cutting some of those quite sort of ear-piercing frequencies, you're getting a little bit more sort of focus and definition on that lead guitar part. Okay, so with this EQ, we are essentially doubling up on this high pass here, getting rid of any rumble. And with this node here, we're just rolling off some of those fizzy high frequencies that are really not that musical. So we don't really want them in our mix at all. So just take a listen to it with and without. We'll start without. So hopefully what you could hear then is it just softens up those fizzy frequencies and just adds a little bit more focus on what the actual instrument is doing musically. Okay, so the next thing we're adding is a dynamic EQ, and we're basically using a shelf to just bring down some of those lower notes. So as the lead guitar goes down its scale and starts playing some more bassier notes, without the dynamic EQ, what essentially happens is you get this sort of boominess that kind of sticks its head out of the mix a little bit. And sometimes that can sound fine. In this instance, I wanted that part of the frequency range of our mix to be very consistent. I didn't want anything poking its head out there. So I used this dynamic EQ to make sure that the guitar stayed very consistent in the low range. So we look here, as the frequencies come down into this section here, it's going to start compressing them and making sure we keep a very consistent sound of the guitar, and it doesn't all of a sudden start sounding a little bit boomy. So let's listen without first, and I've actually picked out a very specific section that the lead guitar plays to essentially drive home the point that I'm trying to make. So right there. The higher register stuff we heard afterwards, that's fine. We don't need to process that, which is the beauty of dynamic EQ. You can essentially pick a very specific band that you want to treat and only treat that part. Just take a listen to this very specific section again. Right there. So on the sustain note, I'm just going to take this out of bypass and just listen how much it cleans up that lead guitar part. So I'll just play it all the way through and we'll take a look at what the dynamic EQ is doing throughout the whole guitar solo. So you can see I was just leaving these higher parts away. Higher parts alone, I should say. I'll go back to that section, the problem section. So with the dynamic EQ, what we're achieving there is a more consistent sound in the guitar. So as it comes down the register, the way the guitar's essentially interacting with the virtual amp, we're getting a little bit of a boom coming through, and that's just keeping that boom down a little bit and allowing us to be a bit more consistent with the tonality of the guitar solo. Okay, so next thing we're going to look at is inside of the virtual mix rack. We're going to focus on the EQ first. The first thing we've done is at around 3 kilohertz, 3.1 to be exact. We're taking away 1 decibel, and this is the sort of shape that we're using on the EQ curve. Let's take a listen to why we did that. So I think there it's literally just a case of cleaning up the guitar, very similar to the move we did inside of THU, where we took away a little bit here. We're essentially just taking away a little bit more here. And we're doing it before the saturators. So let's take a listen to what the saturator's doing. First and foremost, I just want to copy this across to our B. Now I can have these on, and essentially A, B, both the saturators together. Okay, so there we're just getting a lot of really nice fullness from all that harmonic generation. It's just filling out the sound and making it a little bit more interesting. Without it, it does actually sound a little bit thin. Okay, so the next thing we want to look at is what we're doing with the compressor. Let's go take a look right now. Alright, so we are setting up the compressor just to start twitching on some of the more aggressively played parts. Essentially, those initial attacks are just coming and getting a little knock on the head from the compressor. We've got it set to a ratio of 10, so we're essentially using it like a limiter. The attack is fast, the release is fast. And what have we got? We're using makeup of 1 decibel and transformers in, so we're getting a little bit more saturation from this as well. So that's essentially what we're doing with this. It's just basically leveling out some of those peaks and trying to keep the guitar solo nice and dynamically consistent, essentially. And that's the setup for our lead guitar. Thank you very much for watching. I'll catch you next time.